Welcome again, everybody. I also direct the university's International Center for Parliamentary Studies, Research, and Foresight. Although young, our School of Politics, Government, and International Relations has become one of the most proactive areas of the university and one of the most recognized within the country and in Latin America and the Caribbean. The Faculty of Law, on which the School of Government depends, has been recognized as #1 of the private universities in Argentina by World University Rankings. We currently have almost 9,000 students, of which approximately half are undergraduates and the other half are postgraduates. The alumni reach almost 15,000 people. The academic faculty has more than 1,000 professors. We have nearly 500 extension programs. And in addition to this headquarters here in Pilar, where you are, in the province of Buenos Aires, we have facilities in the city of Rosario and another in Rosario in the province of Santa Fe. Those who are in person in Pilar will take a tour led by Josefina Michelini and Sofia Postleman at the end of the meeting. I want to especially thank Sofia, Josefina, and Caitlin from the political section of the Embassy of the United States of America and her team for the organization of this event. I also want to thank the HDP delegation for visiting our country at a historic moment shortly after the mandate of the first economist and libertarian president in Argentina history began. It is a pleasure to welcome back to Argentina to Derek Luiten, Executive Director of HDP, who is also a guest professor of our International Parliamentary Diplomacy Studies program, having taught classes for at least the last 3 years. I also appreciate the presence of Sean Brady and Mitch Munier, who represent the chair and ranking member of HDP, Congressman Bernd Buchanan, Republican from the state of Florida, and Congresswoman Dina Titus, Democrat from the state of Nevada. In parliamentary diplomacy, we always say that one of the central elements to guarantee a successful management is respecting plurality, which in this case is constituted by the bipartisan composition of the HDP delegation. Welcome also Leslie Regan, HDP Deputy Director, and Kate Knudsen, HDP Director of Inter-Parliamentary Relations. It's really a great delegation. Thank you very much for being here. I am sorry that I cannot accompany you in person. Curiously, I am currently in the United States, returning to Buenos Aires next Monday. Before listening to our visitors, I would like to explain who we have invited to the meeting today. First of all, we have academic authorities like Josefina and Sofia, but also professors and researchers in political science and international relations. We also have both and graduate students, but the vast majority are graduates of the international program in parliamentary diplomacy from different years or cohorts. One way to measure the impact of our program is to follow the careers of graduates, and evidence shows that the majority remain linked to parliamentary diplomacy as part of their professional, institutional, or political growth. Just to name a few, Marcela Campagnoli and Dina Resinovsky are national deputies of Argentina. Marcela is there with you, and Dina is connected by Zoom, and Sandra Flores from the National Assembly of Venezuela, the good one. And Jonathan Prendas, professor, was a Costa Rica assemblyman. He's also with us today. So the rest of the participants who are graduates in parliamentary diplomacy occupy important positions in their respective parliaments in Argentina, Colombia, Cuba, Ecuador, Mexico, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Venezuela. We also have the presence today of executives from the FMC of Argentina, that is former members of Congress, as you call it in the United States. Among them, Marcelo Musillo, its CEO, who also has a degree in parliamentary diplomacy from our university. We also have representatives of parliamentary diplomacy from both chambers of the National Congress of Argentina, Solana Marchesan, Councilor of Pilar, the city where you are right now, for the party of President Javier Milei, who works with the Vice President of Argentina, Victoria Villarruel, in the presidency of the Senate of Argentina, and Fernando Ruiz Magadan, who belongs to the General Directorate of Parliamentary Diplomacy of our lower house. I understand that the Deputy Fernando Iglesias from ProBloc, President of the Foreign Relations Committee, received you this morning in the Legislative Palace, together with the deputies Juliana Santillán and Santiago Santurio from La Libertad Avanza, and you had the opportunity to talk about the bill sent by President Milei for treatment by Congress and other issues related to the present and especially the future of Argentina. And last but not least, I do not want to fail to mention Oscar Piquinela de Campos, Secretary of the Geopolitical Group of Latin America and the Caribbean, who received last year the Order of Merit for Leadership and Excellence in the legislative field from our university. So thank you very much also, Oscar, for joining us. And additionally, we have also people from the IPU office in New York City. So thank you for being here too. Okay, the dynamics of the meeting will be as follows. I am going to introduce axes that allow exploring the promotion of academic and interparliamentary cooperation between HDP, Universidad Austral, the National Congress of Argentina, and institutions and parliaments of other countries in the region of Latin America and the Caribbean. Later, we will listen to the members of the HDP delegation, and then we will open a dialogue between the participants. The axes on which I would like to hear from HDP are the following. First one, bilateral relations. So HDP, beyond depending of the US House of Representatives, represents the US Congress. As I understand, HDP currently has only 3 associated legislatures from the Latin America and Caribbean region, which are Colombia, Guatemala, and Peru. However, experience shows that beyond the status of that association, HDP works with the entire region. The evidence demonstrates this, for example, in the case of Argentina, where very successful activities have been carried out by HDP with the support of the International Republican Institute, the IRI, and the National Democratic Institute, NDI. The question is, how could countries like Argentina develop a solid and rich bilateral agenda for the next 4 years, focusing not only on the exchange between the Congresses of Argentina and the United States, but also mediating the intervention of universities, NGOs, and specialized institutions. Although very successful cooperation programs linked to the Congressional Budget Office, for example, CBO, the Congressional Research Service, CRS, transparency and access to public information, among other issues, have been already developed. There is still much to do, for example, in matters of modernization and new technologies. PLS, for example, post-legislative scrutiny, a lawmaking process in which legislation is informed in scientific evidence, and legislative strategic planning, to name just a few examples. That's one level, bilateral relations. Second is regional relations. So Latin America and the Caribbean and the United States of America have had a fluctuating relationship with ups and downs. One of the most effective tools to promote good relations is, in addition to trade and foreign policy, mutual knowledge. And last year, we organized the American Studies program from our Legislative Studies Center, whose academic director is retired Congressman Brian Byrd from Washington State. Nearly 30 professors and experts are recognized American leaders. This year, we are going to repeat the program, which last year was a real success. We also plan to develop a Latin American Studies program, always with a parliamentary perspective. It would be very convenient to have the participation or help of HDP to enrich both programs, and in addition, facilitate exchanges between the US Congress and Latin American legislatures. Also, related to the regional relationship, it would be very interesting to resume the study of the initiative that in 2021 gave rise to the law that promotes the creation of a Parliamentary Assembly of the Americas in the style of the Parliamentary Assemblies of NATO and the OSCE, the Organization for Security and Cooperation with Europe. That's the second point. The third one is about global affairs. From this perspective, the role of HDP and the role that HDP can play is truly enormous. International trade and investments, new technologies, global health, organized crime, terrorism, peace, security, and global justice, climate change, poverty, migrations, and humanitarian crisis, among many other global issues. The international parliamentary community has the IPU, as you know very well, the Inter-Parliamentary Union, which in addition to its two annual assemblies has organized every year since 2018, the Summit of Parliaments of the G20. We call it P20, which includes both the US and Argentina congresses. Maybe in a while we can give the floor to Oscar Piquinela to refer to this issue, or could be even from the office of the IPU in New York City. But I want to end now with the last point, relations between the Americas and other regions of the world. So relationship between regions. The level of integration of Latin America and the Caribbean with the US faces many challenges. Coordinating actions at the hemispheric level with other regions of the world is not easy, but it can constitute a great opportunity and an ideal tool to promote integration and mutual understanding in the Americas. From that perspective, our study center has just created the Afghan and Central Asia program to promote a bridge between the Americas and that region of the planet. The initiative arose from the fall of Kabul in August 2021, and given the difficulties we observed in opening the borders of our countries to receive Afghan parliamentarians and parliamentary staff and their families, among other reasons, due to a great lack of knowledge, So finishing my introduction, I would like to give the floor to Suraj Samin, Hispanic philologist who is studying his second degree in international relations as a scholarship holder from Universidad Austral. Suraj is one of the co-director of the Afghan program. Maybe he can tell in a minute about the launch that we will do in May and who has joined the program until today. Having American and Canadian leaders, as well as Latin American and Caribbean leaders in the program as counterparts, really will be extraordinary. So if you can help with that, that will be amazing. So thank you so much. Now I give the floor first to Suraj Samin, and then I don't know if Josefina or Sofia want to say something, and then we start with we give the floor to the HDP delegation. Thank you very much. Suraj, go ahead, please.
For your introduction, first of all, I would like to welcome this honorable person, like Sien, which is a chief of staff and also a great role model. Derek, which is also not only politician, also a great expert in the Middle East, and especially his Spanish and French is better than mine. And Mitch, which is not only great politician, also he is really good in tourism and traveling. Leslie, which also she has a master in international relations, which is my field of study. Meanwhile, she is one of the best students of Harvard. She was Harvard University in international relations, and we don't need to forget Kate. She is a great leader, and also she is a great event organizer. And meanwhile, being a great politician. Thank you so much for giving this honor for us and accepting our invite to come to our university. I'm Suraj Samin, the only Afghan refugee after the falling of Kabul in Argentina. And also I'm a student of international relations. Meanwhile, today I stand before you as the deputy coordinator of Afghanistan and Central African Program studies, which will be on the 8th of May. By also the support of Oxford University, and for sure we need your support as well. As our mission is clear, to foster understanding and make connection between America and Afghanistan and Central Asian countries. and also becoming a bridge of empowering girls' education and human rights in Afghanistan. Today, in this program, I seek your support to empower this mission. I also believe that as you supported our country in 2 previous decades, and you continue this support and being the open light again for supporting this program. As we know, Afghanistan, which was a country that decades we were in different challenges, and also education nowadays is also a beacon of hope because the people need to educate, but unfortunately, these people got apparently the government, they don't let them to educate. And for this purpose, we initiated an Afghan study program. And for sure, we need your support to make this vision a reality. I wish that at the end of this meeting, you give us your support to launch this program on 8th of May. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suraj. Everything all right there? Do you listen okay, Juan?
Josefina o Sofía,
Sí.
y si no pasamos a Derek.
Dale, perfecto. No, nosotros nada más to give you a very warm welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here in our university, in our School of Government, and for you to tell us about what you do.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. My name is Derek Lang, as was said. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here, first and foremost. For most of us, it's our first time visiting Argentina, so we're really excited to be here. We've had a great trip so far. It's very short. We just arrived yesterday morning. One of us leaves tonight, and then the rest of us leave on Sunday. So short but impactful. And quick thanks to our embassy colleagues who have done great work in ensuring that we've had a great, comprehensive, exhaustive, panoramic of stakeholders in Argentina. We think that this is a fantastic time for us to be here. There's so much going on, not just with the new government, but I think with new opportunities between not just Argentina and the United States, but Argentina and the hemisphere and abroad. And HDP, I think, can serve as a great conduit and can help with some of those initiatives, absolutely. So if I may, I will explain briefly about HDP, then I'll turn it over to my colleagues to introduce sort of what they do in the Congress. And then we can go into some more specifics about the work that we do, what we've done in the region, what we've done, what we'd like to do in other regions. I know that we're looking at Central Asia, perhaps as opportunities, and then open it up to question and answer if that works for you. Great. So the House Democracy Partnership is a really unique commission within the House. We are based on 20 members, 11 in the majority party, so the Republicans who are now a majority of the House, and 9 in the minorities, 9 Democrats. And these 20 members are our bosses, my bosses in particular, especially, of course, the chairman, Buchanan, who is represented by Sean, and the ranking members of the Democrat, who's represented by Mitch. And our goal is very simple. Our goal is to work with parliaments around the world and to share the best practices of how we consider highly functioning legislatures. Transparent, process-oriented, citizen engaging, sustainable, maintainable, and consistent. And so we are very careful to not be guilty of American exceptionalism. We think our Congress is excellent. If you divorce the politics, our Congress is excellent. We have some of the best institutions in the world. We've been doing this for 250 years. So we have a lot of lessons learned that we can share with other parliaments. But we also have much to learn. COVID, I think, was a great reminder of how these bodies need to evolve and need to evolve consistently. So we have much to learn from others, which is why our name is very unique. It's the partnership, because we can learn from others and share our own experiences. So with that, I'll turn it over to Leslie to talk a little bit about what she does and her expertise, and then go to Sean and Mitch and then Kate, and then if possible, we'll go into a little bit more detail afterwards. Leslie.
Leslie Reagan, I'm the Deputy Director of the House Democracy Partnership. In the partnership itself and the commission, I handle all of our communications, so internal and external communications efforts, and we recently got a new website, which is very exciting and welcome to look. And assist on different programs and working with the members directly to ensure their participation in working with legislatures around. So this is a little pivot, and we'll talk more about HDP in a moment, but
So Mitch Mounier worked for HDP ranking member Dana Titus. I served as her legislative director. So there's a bunch of outside of legislation, there's a managerial aspect to that. There's a political aspect, and then also I oversee our legislative team. So I have my own portfolio of policies, mainly domestic issues. But then manage a team and make sure that they have resources they need to execute policies or their portfolios that they oversee as well.
So again, appreciate you guys all having us today, and a warm welcome to your country. First time here, but I guarantee will not be the last, hopefully. So yeah, as was mentioned, Sean Brady, Chief of Staff for Congressman Vern Buchanan. So he's the chairman of the House Democracy Partnership. And that's admittedly just kind of a small part of kind of what Mitch and I do is help out with the HDP side of things. Derek and Leslie are that full time. So Mitch and I kind of serve as leaders in our respective offices for not only the legislative side of things, but communications as well. And then of course, kind of constituent outreach as well as constituent assistance, back home. So we kind of help serve as a liaison of sorts with different federal agencies. So if constituents are having problems receiving, veterans benefits or social security benefits or help with the IRS, things like that, we help kind of, cut through a lot of the bureaucratic red tape, hopefully, theoretically, and help kind of get an answer quickly. And yes, in addition to serving as the chairman of the House Democracy Partnership, HDP, my boss, Vern Buchanan, serves as the vice chair of the Ways and Means Committee. So they focus on a lot of the economic, bread and butter type issues, so taxes, trade, healthcare. And I kind of always say, no day is the same. From a Monday to a Tuesday, you could be, talking about tax policy one day. The House is kind of taking up a new tax next week. Next day, you're focusing on healthcare and any other issue under the sun at any given point in time. So you wear a lot of different hats in the congressional office. You have kind of a small staff, but it's kind of like a small business where you have to do kind of everything. So it's fun. I love doing it. I've been doing this for 13 years. And so it's just a fun, kind of fast paced, kind of environment. And the opportunity to be able to help represent, 780,000 people back home in my boss district of Southwest Florida is a great opportunity. And again, appreciate you all having us.
Good afternoon. My name is Kate Knudsen. As previously mentioned, I serve as director of the Office of Inter-Parliamentary for the House of Representatives. So the Office of Inter-Parliamentary Affairs falls under technically the Speaker's office. But we are there to help coordinate all of the engagements that the speaker has and also other members with foreign dignitaries that may be visiting, anything from the meeting all the way up to yesterday of upcoming state visits of the Prime Minister of Japan. So we help with this, but just the back. Sorry, and just begin to be louder, please, because our companions in Zoom are having trouble to listen. Perfect. A little bit louder. If it's not loud enough, please tell me again. Yeah. So in addition to working with our diplomatic community and the international community for their visits to Washington, we also take that and travel internationally. So anytime that members or staff a delegation such as this want to travel and engage with parliaments around the world, or if they may be going for an event here, as you may know, there are always anniversaries. The 80th anniversary of D-Day is coming up this summer. The Office of Inter-Parliamentary Affairs helps coordinate all the logistics of international travels for members of Congress and staff. So there is never a time when members or staff are not in Washington that there aren't people out around the world carrying the message of diplomacy and partnership that similar to the work that HDP made. And so can you go a little bit slower as well? So many seconds. So
It's okay. A little bit louder and slower. So
How much do you want to? And really, I would almost in closing, simply to say that the office that I get to work with, is so interesting, I think, because it has the opportunity to engage with the international community and send the message of the US Congress globally of the commitment that the US has to engage on all different levels, but most importantly, on the parliamentary level. Thank you.
So I think we're all very lucky that we get to do what we do in Congress. Sean and Mitch are focused more on the personal aspects of the member and all the work that they do. But they're also, I think, lucky enough to work on HDP issues and to travel. And I think to Kate's point, our Congress is a very outward facing, almost international body in that we do a lot of diplomacy as well. It's not just our State Department that conducts diplomacy. And we've heard that several times just in our short time here, that the Congress, in our mind, has a very strong role to play when it comes to diplomacy and foreign engagement. And it should do as much as it can, because the Congress represents the people directly. The State Department, at least in our system, represents more the executive branch and the president and his or her views. So we take it upon ourselves, and it's a very important role that we play in this. And HDP is a great opportunity for our members to engage, like Juan said, in a very bilateral way, member to member, staff to staff. So what the House Democracy Partnership does on a day-to-day basis is create opportunities for that type of engagement. Whether it's classic classroom style, people in seats, technical experts talking about how we organize our committees, how we conduct hearings, how we work on oversight, which is a very big popular topic. That's something that I think what's really interesting is that the level of governance is scalable and evolves. So depending on the maturity and the professionalism of the parliament, we can easily go for technical or far more baseline. It depends. With some of the countries we work with, they just recently transitioned to democracy. So they haven't had multi-party systems before. The legislature has never introduced a law, ever. And so they ask us, how does a bill become a law? How does an idea become legislation? Other parliaments are trying to enact ethics laws, ethics rules, ethics codes in their parliament. That's something far more complex. You include financial disclosures, talk about aspects of Robert's Rules of Order, which is how MPs and staff should operate and how they should act. We can even look at the institutions within our Congress, which I mentioned earlier, the CRS, the Congressional Research Service, the Congressional Budget Office. We have an office called what's called ledge drafting, ledge branch, which the highly intelligent lawyers who write the beautiful language that our legislation is, they're the ones that do it. And then they check for precedent, make sure that what we're actually proposing is legal. So we have those types of institutions in our Congress that are great sources of information. And so what we often do is bring them to other countries and have them interact directly with their counterparts. So we're almost a vehicle to transfer knowledge. And that they really appreciate that opportunity because then they can learn from others as well. And in some cases, they have more than 100 years of experience that they can share. And they can say, we still struggle doing X, Y, Z, and then have a conversation on the X, Y, Z, which is always very interesting. I'll get into just briefly how we can do some of this work because I call it a public-private partnership. It's obviously more complex than that, but we work very closely with the IRI and the NDI, which Juan mentioned earlier. And these are two NGOs based in Washington, and they work on all issues of international development, political parties, civil society, journalism, media, election observation, governance, among other things. So the whole rubric of international development. So between the two of them, they have thousands of staff in more than 80 countries around the world. So we partner with them, and through a congressional appropriation, they are tasked with doing HTP programs. And we work closely with them because otherwise we're a small office in Congress, we couldn't possibly work on such a huge international level. And the average of our engagement is very consistent. We work with about 1,000 people every 2 years. Every Congress is 2 years for the lower house, United States. And we always are very careful to work half with staff, half with members. In our system, staff play a critical role. We say that from experience, of course, and we're biased because we're all staff. But it's true, we're fortunate that we're well-resourced in our Congress, and members have a lot of staff, a lot of professionals. And so we share that professionalism with our counterparts abroad. In some cases, we will engage strictly staff to staff only, and then we'll afterwards can engage member to member. So generally speaking, as you all might know well, it's easier to get staff involvement than it is your member, because the members are very busy. So there's a practicality issue to it as well. So we work closely with the institutes to make sure we have a broad reach, and then we ensure that our members and other staff have the chance to engage. And it's a member-directed program. So really the chairman, Vern Buchanan, and the ranking member, Gina Titus, will tell us, we'd like to see a little bit more of this, or what's going on here, or I got a specific request from speaker in this parliament would like to help with Y. And so we can quickly engage with that. Our commission is authorized by the speaker's office, and Kate is with, and that affords us more flexibility. We're not subject to the rules or regulations of any one committee within our Congress. So we're speaker authorized. It's always been that way, I think, for more than 15 years. So we're very fortunate that we have the flexibility to do that. And I think we're now it'll be 20 years of our commission next year. And we've had that structure for almost 16, 17 years, and it works very well for us. So Leslie will talk a little bit more about why we actually do this work and what the real benefits are. And then we can have questions. We'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the work and these opportunities. But the opportunities for bilateral and regional engagement are endless. Really, they are. We're only limited by our resources, our limited resources, and by our time. Otherwise, there's always tons of opportunities to engage more. And that's actually why we're here. We're trying to find out greater opportunity to engage with Argentina from a congressional standpoint, but also from a bilateral standpoint as well.
I'll briefly add, the hallmark of a strong democracy is a strong lip. Key piece of it. And so why this work matters is it provides an avenue, particularly for the US Congress, to in many ways assist, but also learn from other parliaments that are also working to build their strength. And we are clearly seeing democratic backsliding globally. It's a clear trend going on now. We're clearly seeing authoritarian governments that are becoming more aggressive in their international relations and outward reach. I'll briefly mention, obviously, Russia, China.
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Even louder. Oh, wow. I thought that's how I'm over there. Yeah. Okay. So, and Iran, and so we're seeing this push for a different world order that is very dangerous to our commitment as the United States to democratic values, both at home and abroad. And so the House Democracy Partnership is a great tool in our arsenal of tools to ensure that we can work peer to peer, staff to staff, member to member, and build up democratic solidarity globally. And also all these process-oriented tools and share best practice, because that's how legislators are trying is through sharing best practices. So, I'll just add that this is, the benefits of multilateralism don't really need I think y'all in this room, if you're in this room, you understand that multilateralism is a very important thing. And so really it's just, that was, you know, part of why HTP was created and why we continue to be an important part of this.
So one did mention some specifics about some of the programs we've done recently in this region and abroad, and so I'd like to just share a couple of quick examples of what it actually means, this work. A month ago, or a little bit more, Peru has seen a lot of instability politically. We've seen many iterations of government there, but the staff has been consistent within the parliament, and so just last month we did a program with the staff to talk about looking at the budget process, transparency, and also participatory budgeting, and make sure that budgeting is done. I can look at different opportunities to include minority, and at some point, and in some cases, women who are disproportionately affected when a budgeting process is not done on a holistic perspective. 4 months ago, we held a large regional program in Chile, for which we brought women MPs from across the region. I think about 7 countries were represented. We had more than 40 MPs, Chile for 3 days, talk about not just advancing women's political leadership, but actually finding practical solutions to stop barriers of entry for women to get involved in politics. This is actually a program that we'd like to do more of. There was a lot of demand for this. It was very well received, and something that we'd like to do more of moving forward. And it harkens back a little bit to the program we did here in Buenos Aires at Juan, where I met Juan just under 5 years ago, where we worked with a whole series of members of parliament from across the region on anti-corruption issues. Again, not just talking a lot, but actually looking at practical means. And that's one of the things I love about HTP, is that it's far more practical than it is academic. We really look at solutions to the problems that members and staff and legislators writ large face. So by the end of it, you can actually see real outputs, real value to the work. Not always. There are some drawbacks working in governance, as you know. It's transient. Members and staff change. It can be difficult to have some consistency with that. But building up really solid institutional knowledge is always one of our primary goals, to ensure that there is that transition. Lastly, I'll note, I'm sure many of you have heard of the Summit for Democracy. There have been 2 iterations of the Summits for Democracy. We were involved virtually to ensure that members of parliament and the Congress is involved. We realized that the president and the executive branch were organizing international fora that don't include opportunities for the MPs and the legislators to be involved. We saw that as a glaring omission. And so on the margins of the Summit for Democracy, we organized a legislative track. And what the beauty in our system is that the White House at first called us and said, what are you doing? You know, this is the Summit for Democracy, you know, this is the White House, it's the State Department. We're Congress. We don't answer to you. You can't tell us what to do. And so we proceeded, and they were obviously very open to including the program when they realized the value add, the great benefit that we were bringing. And so for this last summit, we had just under 50 members of parliament from 25 countries around the world in Washington for a whole week to participate in the White House-led events, but also in our own member-to-member events. We had multiple speakers attend from different countries, and it was truly a global opportunity for knowledge sharing and sharing of obstacles that a lot of parliaments face along the certain themes that the summit had. We also did something similar during the OAS meeting in Los Angeles last year. Again, another opportunity for members of parliament to be engaged, and they were not. And so we worked with Parliamericas, which is a great organization. They work in the hemisphere, and we were able to bring members of parliament from across the region to Los Angeles to participate on the margins of the OAS Summit of the Americas, to engage on issues that are pertinent to members, to Congress. In our system, members in Congress are the ones that appropriate, which means they fund the government, they fund everything. They are the ones that communicate to citizens, and they're the ones that can debate in a true manner publicly about policy. And so if you don't have them involved, then it's a huge detriment to whatever initiative that the government wants to move forward. So for us, this is something that we want to continue doing. We're looking at doing something in the Eastern Caribbean, potentially going to Guyana with CARICOM. So again, within the region, I know a little different from mainland South America, but we're constantly looking for new opportunities for bilateral engagement. The world evolves very quickly, political processes change, so we must be open to and adapt and find other opportunities to work with other parliaments that we can also learn from. Again, I really want to emphasize that point. It's not just us sharing our practices, it's also learning from others. So I'd be happy to stop there. You can get into more specifics, but if you have questions or comments, please let us know.
Yes, you can ask your question if you have the Microsoft platform and you will leave them there. So they can listen because of the translation.
Thank you very much. First of all, thanks for being here. Thanks.
Muchísimas gracias, Sofi. ¿Alguno quiere hacer una pregunta? Por favor, levanten la mano allí en el piso. Y o si no, aquí por la plataforma de Zoom. Mientras esperamos algún comentario, simplemente quiero felicitar a HDP y al Congreso de los Estados Unidos porque la cumbre para la democracia, el capítulo legislativo fue realmente muy bueno, muy bueno. Hubo uno que se hizo en forma remota y otro que se hizo en forma física. Y bueno, Argentina tuvo también representación allí, así que, y fue por supuesto muy bueno y coincido con el último orador que absolutamente muy importante la dimensión legislativa, por supuesto.
Juan, ¿ahí me escuchas bien?
¿Alguno quiere hacer una pregunta?
No, no te escuchando.
Yo les hago una pregunta, aprovechando que no veo a nadie aún, que tiene que ver... Ah, sí, allí está, creo que es... ahí, adelante, por favor. Sí, sí, al lado de Josefina.
¿Nos escuchas?
¿Nos escuchás?
Juan.
A ver si me pongo acá, seguramente me va a dar una cámara de ese lado. A ver. Juan, ¿no? ¿Nos escuchás?
No.
Hola, hola.
Ahora sí escucho, perdón, disculpe.
¿Sí? ¿Me escuchas bien?
Ahora escucho perfecto, mil
¿Ahora
disculpas.
sí?
Bueno, as I say, well, thanks for being here. Thanks, Juan de Dios Singonegui, for inviting me. My name is Alejo Iramain. I am former advisor of Deputy Alberto Acef. He was working in a special division of the Congress, that is President of Defense. As I knew, he was working with the Boeing F-16 aircraft for our airports. And I would like to question about how do you divide what is policy from some policy of parties from the state policy? Because here in Argentina, we have several problems that involves that the discipline of party is a primary objective in the agenda, and we have some needs for our people that maybe they're in a second place. And then the problem that we have, because as we knew in the state, we have some political states such as Malvinas, such as human rights, but in the affairs of policy party, we have several problems. Yes, and we know that the Article 48 of our Constitution reminds that all policy parties are elements of democracy. But sometimes we don't have the enough representation to incur that democracy. And that's my question.
Yeah.
So there's a famous saying, there's a former Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, and he said that all politics is local. And I think that's what's easy for us to sometimes buck the administration or the ruling party and the executive. Because at the end of the day, you know, in the House, our bosses are elected every 2 years and the president's elected every 4 years. So if the president, you know, right now we have a Democratic president, my boss is a Democrat. She supports a lot of his policies, but at the end of the day, if he wants to continue to have that support, you know, for 2 of her terms, you know, they can't really try to constrict us that much. So when I say all politics is local, the executive does a really good job at understanding that, yes, we need the parties to back certain policies. But at the end of the day, like, you have to vote your district first before anything else. Oh, sorry, vote your district. So our constituencies, the ones who vote us to the House of Representatives, you know, there's, I think it's every 750,000 citizens. So I think we have 435 districts in the House that can vote in the House. So based on those 435 districts, they vote, send their members to the House of Representatives, and then the country as a whole every 4 years votes on the president. So when I say vote your district, it's you have to put the interests of whichever one of those 435 districts before the party.
And maybe just to elaborate on that a little bit, so kind of going off of this point about, you know, representing and voting your district. So, you know, for instance, my boss is a Republican, he represents Sarasota, Florida, Southwest Florida, just kind of along the coast. So while he's a Republican, he probably agrees with most Republicans, you know, 90% of the issues. There are certainly a handful of issues that make a lot more sense in my boss's backyard than it does in a completely different state, you know, halfway across the country. So for instance, you know, the Paris Climate Accord, there was a vote a number of years ago where my boss was one of 3 Republicans to vote to keep us in the Paris Climate. There was a vote on, you know, gun background checks. He was one of 8 Republicans to vote to try to require more background checks for guns. So those are some areas where you kind of bust the party line based on his constituency. So, you know, every district has what's called a PVI, partisan voter index. It's kind of the average of how much your district leans Republican or leans Democrat. So my boss's district, for instance, is an R+7, which definitely is a Republican district, but it's far from an R+40 district, which a lot of R+30 or D+20 or D+30. So they're much more heavily concentrated Democrats versus much more heavily concentrated Republicans. So you try to keep in consideration, hey, I have a little bit more of a moderate district. Hey, I have a beautiful coastline in my district where we're concerned about offshore drilling. We're concerned about, you know, maybe some environmental issues. My boss is also, again, maybe interesting for a Republican. He's the co-chair of the Animal Protection Caucus. That, again, may not be the most typical thing you think of as a Republican. So with all these things, you try to keep it in consideration, you know, not only in order to get reelected, obviously that's part of the goal too, but also to effectively represent, you know, your district and your constituents process.
To Sean's point, I think the parties are generally very aligned on what they want to do, and they work as a monolith, as a block. Depending on the majority in the House, however many seats they have more than the other party, they can be a little bit more freewheeling and allow some members to vote their district more often, or to say, I can't support you, speaker or leader, and then they refrain from doing so. But usually our system is also It's controlled in a way that the leadership knows the block. They know their members, they know how they feel, and they know by name. Well, maybe Mr. Buchanan won't support this, so we have to be careful if we put it on the floor for a vote. Also, our system, the leadership within the House is very strong. The Speaker is in charge of the majority and of the House and works closely with the majority leader of the party. And they really set the tone for what happens on the floor for the votes. And they do have a lot of authority when it comes to that. So there's a lot of exchange between regular members, senior members, and the leadership of the House. And we see that play out every day. I hope that helps.
Anyone has any other question? Yes, of course. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here. Juan de Dios, thank you very much for inviting us, Marcelo Musicho and me. My name is Federico Fernandez. I'm National Director of the Senate Chamber in the nation of Argentina. In our area, we work in issues related to transparency, good parliamentary practices, and the open government plan. In our activity, I would like to ask you something about how did you describe the activity of the House Democracy Partnership regarding the transparency policy, or is there any tool or digital tools to transparency in the government or practice in the committees and the parliament system? Thank you very much.
I think the one word answer to your question is transparency. And the House and the Senate are both extremely transparent. And I think that's what helps make our system reliable in that way. The committee work, almost all of it is public. It's either open room for marking up bills or recorded, and you can watch it later on the website. Similar to your system here, votes are immediately recorded. I mean, Argentina is very mature parliament. We have the same process where everything is recorded for posterity. All the legislation, how people voted, all of that is always in permanence. But I think the way that the committees and the commissions, for that matter, hold hearings and operate almost always publicly, other than our intelligence committee, which at times does closed door hearings for obvious reasons. Everything is always transparent. We also have, for better or for worse, a very strong media component in the United States, and they are actively following our political leaders. And in some cases are always there hanging on to what leaders say. And as a result, they have great access. Media is allowed to walk through the halls of Congress any time of day, night, and walk into anyone's office if they would like. They call it the People's House, and it really is the People's House. Again, for better or for worse, I joke, but not really. Anyone can just walk in and request a meeting and sit there and wait for the members to come. And the schedule for our members is we establish the calendar 1 year in advance. So for the next year, you know where the members will be, if they're in Washington, D.C., or if there will be most likely in their districts working. So that transparency, I think, has led to a little bit more trust, a little bit more openness, a lot of criticism, of course. So it's a dual-edged sword sometimes, but it allows for this transparent manner in which we work. So that's what I would say. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Just on the transparency oversight of the executive piece of it. The United States is very good at doing this. The Congress is interested both in the minority and the majority in providing oversight functions of the executive, particularly the military, what the military is doing and spending money on. But every branch of government, commerce, even State Department, one often joked about way is through reports. The Congress can mandate that an executive branch report to them on their activities, what they're spending. Obviously, we understand what they're spending money on, but it can be very detailed in that nature. They can also call them in to come to a hearing to answer on what their department or branch is doing. There's many ways that Congress provides this sort of oversight of the executive branch, and I think everyone understands that to the public's benefit. It benefits people in Florida to understand how the money is being spent to build F-16. You know, it benefits the people in Nevada to understand why, you know, we have certain laws on nuclear, oversight on nuclear testing and things like that, because it affects them individually. So that is a very robust function in the US Congress, and something that the HDP actually shares with, you know, less mature parliaments that don't have oversight functions at all in some cases, in some countries around the world, and then some that are developing a stronger sense of oversight.
Sorry, do you have a specific program of transparency, like design program, or like to communicate this function?
Yeah, our partners, International Republican Institute and the National Democratic Institute that Derek mentioned, IRI and NDI, they do oversight trainings with members of parliament and with that, like very specific, here's how to do it step by step. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions, anyone? Our students, do you want to ask any questions? After. No. Of course. No. Sí, sí, sí. No sé, ¿quieres hacer una pregunta? Puedes hacerla en español. Y ahí,
I'm just a citizen. I'm here just as a citizen. And I wrote down things that you all said. You all spoke about a strong democracy, strong legislation, strong. And as a citizen, and you also said about involved and engagement and being committed. And I think that things will change a lot in this country if we have committed citizens. If we all involved doing things and okay, we don't like this, we speak up. The problem here is that citizens are afraid. They are afraid of being, I don't know, if you say something that they might follow you, but as a citizen, I invite people to, okay, let's get involved. It's the only thing to change things. If we are strong citizens and committed citizens, we would have a strong democracy. That's what I feel as a citizen. Thank you.
Allow me to respond to that. Fully agree. You know, when you talk about the governance loop, you have supply and demand. And it's the demand from the citizens, from the people, that creates and pushes the supply from the members and the Congress. And if one of them doesn't really work, then the system doesn't work well. So education, civics is really important. Engaged media that can tell citizens what's happening and allow them to better understand combating misinformation, disinformation that can potentially sway in a negative way what's actually happening. So these are threats that everyone faces, and it's hard to really do it. You know, I know that in some places you have the entire population become political experts and always want to share their views, and it makes it very hard. And you know, we have it in our system where we have good friends and family members who are members of the other party, and we have really strong disagreements, you know, depending on who's running or what they feel like. And it's hard sometimes, absolutely. And it's something that our country is not immune to. And it's a serious challenge. And that's hopefully through opportunities like this, and when our members engage, we can combat this and find ways to mitigate those consequences. Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. I want to ask Juan, ¿hay alguien del Zoom que quiera hacer alguna pregunta?
A ver, del Zoom, ¿hay alguien que quiera hacer alguna pregunta?
¿Alguna mano levantada o alguien del programa?
No, por aquí no, por ahora no veo. Tenemos gente en la oficina de IPU en New York. Tenemos sí, estudiantes. No.
Yo tengo una pregunta, Rosa, porque me
Adelante.
Gracias. No, I wanted, thank you. I wanted to ask you, what opportunities and challenges do you see in Javier Milei's government now in Argentina? Because it's been said that he's like Trump, no? We have like our appreciations on if this is a populist leader or not, and what consequences can this have in our democracy. So I wanted to ask you, as foreigners, what do you see from here in Argentina?
Guys, in Spanish, I will start to you with my English very rapidly. Okay. Sumando a la pregunta que hacía Sofía, me parece que puedo enganchar una pregunta que un poco había comentado Leslie, este ascenso de líderes no solamente autoritarios, sino líderes liberales, democracias liberales, como el backsliding. Y de, ¿are you listening?
Yeah, to the side.
Okay. El democratic backsliding. El rol que ustedes creen que tiene la institución y los parlamentos en general para contener o trabajar no solamente este ascenso iliberal, por alguna manera, sino también articulando respuestas a estas problemáticas transnacionales que muchos de estos líderes directamente repudian. Cambio climático, derechos de las mujeres, desigualdad creciente, los beneficios de las instituciones del famoso orden liberal. Entonces, para sumar un poco, teniendo en cuenta que Milei en algún punto académicamente se inserta en esta corriente, ¿de qué manera ustedes creen que la institución, parlamentos en general o el partnership, puede ayudar a encauzar, a pesar de los vaivenes políticos, mecanismos para sostener estos problemas y estas problemáticas que son transnacionales y transgeneracionales? Thank you.
I just wanted to say, on the Milei question, obviously outsiders and looking in, but what we learned with kind of a unconventional president is that sometimes the noise takes away from the message, which is not a good thing. I think, mature, serious politics, sometimes it's better to have a mature, serious voice. And so that's the challenge. It's like hearing the message through the noise and making sure that the people understand and agree with that mandate. The opportunity I think Americans see in Milei is obviously there are enormous challenges, economic, particularly challenges in Argentina. And, I think we understand very well that sometimes when the system isn't working, you have to just radically change it, even if it's painful. And so I think that the United States particularly hopes that these painful changes, end in good results. And I imagine people here do too, which is why he was elected in the first place. So we do understand the challenge of someone who's unconventional, who, from an outsider's perspective, he did seem very odd and unconventional. But I think that the possibility of good change and a good outcome is worth that sometimes.
Thank you.
I would echo what Leslie said, is that any change in government was going to have challenges, especially ones where, got a large omnibus and articles that, number in the hundreds will face. I think that, to answer your question a little bit, is that parliaments need to be honest brokers for negotiating. We've said it, and I think we all believe that legislators are the third leg of the stool. Without it, you don't have a good functioning democracy. So we were really pleased to see the extraordinary session in Parliament. The diputados working all week. And yes, there have been delays and there will likely be more delays and more disagreement. But that's okay. In our minds, that just means that the system is working. And you hope it stays at a level where it's professional and it doesn't devolve. But it may. And as long as the system continues to work itself through that way, then that's a good thing. I think if there's closed-mindedness to change and reform, then it will make everything much more difficult. But far be it from us to comment on any specific policy change, other than we would love to see greater engagement with Argentina, economically, democratically, security related. A stronger Argentina is good for the United States. A stronger United States is good for Argentina in our minds. And so we want nothing more than to engage more. And we hope that this visit obviously is just a drop in the bucket, but there's a lot of interest in what happens in Argentina in the United States. And we're hopeful that in this coming year, we'll be able to engage far more consistently and maintain a high level of engagement. Absolutely.
Does anyone else want to ask?
Okay, I think that you can hear my voice or not.
Just in case. For the translators, maybe.
It was really great to hear about the HDP. And my question about when you're talking about the team government can be a challenge. What do you think about the current government? It's not government because we don't accept it in Afghanistan. To your HDP perspective, because when the government or the system change, the region change, it gets a lot of challenge. But when we are observing those people was in 1996 before the intervention of the United States in Afghanistan, they got the government, and again they have the same government, but much powerful. And also we can see that the parliamentarians that they cannot do anything in Afghanistan, and they are somehow hiding in many countries. And how do you think that HDP can help us in the future to also empower the people, and how you can make another good relation between the people that they want revolution?
We've seen many places democracy evolve, go up and down, sometimes get stronger and sometimes obviously grow much weaker. We've had legislatures that we worked consistently with for many years. Now we cannot work with them at all. In some cases, like Haiti, which is a country in the region. Haiti was a long time HDP member. They don't even have a Congress now. It's just too dangerous, similar to what there is in Afghanistan. But we used to work closely in Burma. They don't also, their legislature is on the run. They have members hiding. The national unity government is under constant challenge. And the same in Afghanistan. We used to work quite a bit with different members, and especially women members, increase women's opportunity there. And it's now something, unfortunately, we cannot do. HDP as a commission cannot do much, I'll be honest with you. We work with legislators that are currently operating and running and can have the ability and the will to reform, right? Because that's on both ends. We are highly willing to reform. We change our Congress all the time. We add new offices, we amend institutions to make it better, to make it more transparent. So unfortunately, from an HDP perspective, what we can do is continue to find opportunities for stakeholders that want to see a more democratic Afghanistan. Absolutely, we support them and we'd love to engage with them. We also provide opportunities for them to engage with our members, our staff, our leadership from diplomacy level, and ensure that if there are policies or there are opportunities for our members to act, whether it's to pass legislation or resolutions or to mandate our State Department to do one thing or another, then we afford them that opportunity, absolutely. And we encourage our members to do that and to do the right thing.
I think Juan wanted to make an intervention. Juan, Mr.
Yes. Thank you very much, Sophia. Thank you. No, I just want to say that in terms of the exploration of mutual cooperation between HDP and Argentina, and related to the presidency of Javier Milei, I think that, of course, I'm sure that United States will support all the economic reforms that the the new president is proposing for the country in terms of free trade and of course how to improve the income of our citizens and the capacity to develop a better economy. Of course, it's going to take time, but that part is clearly that Milei is an economist and the focus is on that. But in terms of the other things that were mentioned here, I just want to say that Milei has a very reduced, and I think you know perfectly, number of legislators at the Senate and at the lower house. We are talking about 10% at the Senate and 15% more or less at the Chamber of Deputies. So, and this is important because it was mentioned here by the HDP delegates, the parliamentary or legislative oversight and the importance. And the truth is that one of the opportunities and challenges for Argentina is not just the economic reform and how to improve our economy, but also the institutional reform. And there is where I find a great opportunity with HDP, because imagine that, for example, legislative oversight is not very well developed in Argentina. And when we have presidencies with a majority in both chambers or with a good number of MPs, in general, the official party block the oversight. And I remember to heard from a congresswoman from the United States in the Summit of Democracy saying that it doesn't matter you are Democrat, you are Republican, a good practice is to oversight together to the executive branch. No, probably there are differences, but at least conceptually, and I believe it was honest what this congresswoman said. It's very important. So imagine that even the president has no capacity to limit to the National Congress of Argentina any of the chambers, because has very small representation in both. So what I'm saying is probably it is a good opportunity for the opposition today to support to the president of Argentina, because it looks like the president wants to improve the institutions and try to work seriously how to make a better Congress and better public policies, not just for this president, these 4 years, but for the future of all Argentinians. This is not about a political party or about an ideology. This is about the interests of the whole country, and in particular the present and particularly the future generations. So I just want to say that it's important for Argentina to have a good parliament, a good legislative power. Sometimes looks like we are in many ways similar to the United States formally. I'm talking about the political system. But in reality, there are a lot of things that are not working very well. I know that you have your crisis also, politically speaking, in the United States, but we can take advantage of, for example, CBO. We are starting in Argentina. We are doing it very well with everything related to budget, but we still can improve how we are working. Everything related to, for example, research at the Congress is not working very well at our National Congress. I want to be honest, because we study these things. You can help us with that also. Oversight, again, oversight is important. We need to do it better, and many other things. So I just want to let you know that I know perfectly HDP. I know your potential. You are in a small office, but as you said, you work integrated to other offices inside the National Congress, and even with think tanks, NGOs, and other institutions. Just that. So please pay attention to Argentina. I think Argentina needs support, and we need to improve our institutions for sure, to accompany the economic reforms. It's not just about to have a smaller state, but also a state of quality. Even being smaller, that state should work correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. And let me add, on the oversight piece, I think the executive and the members welcome oversight. Oversight is not a bad word in our system, and it should never be a bad word. It's an opportunity to present the successes or to identify the opportunity to improve in any legislative text, resolution, policy, ongoing initiative. So oversight is just like ethics. It's not to get you into trouble. It's to keep you out of trouble. And so they welcome it party to party. Our system, our culture is one where citizens expect their member to question things, even if they're of the same party. You can do it in a way that's constructive, not just trying to bring you down. And it happens on everything that we do. And so we can still improve these methods, but it's something that's highly, highly integral to the way our Congress operates.
Thank you so much. We have to get back to the city, so we're gonna have to wrap up and head back to our car. So thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it, and if you guys have any last words, but I want to.
I would just like to say thank you to all of you who participated again. I think you've heard repeatedly from both sides and all entities the importance of the continued partnership between the United States and Argentina. We are here to be your partners. We look forward to continuing that with you. And again, that always starts with dialogue, right? Regardless of differences of opinion, differences on policy, new administration, having the basis, have the conversation, all that could be difficult. It's how it continues and how you improve those partnership diplomacy all throughout. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Gracias a todos, muy amables. Thank you.